Hi guys, welcome to episode 2 of the podcast interviews where we interview Rise, ninjas and other people to talk about their experiences, either before we met them and since, or just whatever it is that we think might be an interesting story to tell for people like yourself who are listening. Today we have Kim on the podcast. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, John.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. Are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's funny, isn't it, with stuff like this? I've already said how are you like 2 minutes ago when we first got on the call, and then you have to do it again for the benefit of the listeners. Cool. So, Kim, you've been a member for quite a while now. Is it 5.5 years? Is that right?
No, it'll be 5 years in May.
5 years this year. Sorry, I've had an extra year on. My apologies. So, you've been a member longer than the majority of people we've had on the podcast, which may mean that you have some different insights or observations. But for those who don't know who you are, and perhaps even for those that do, but perhaps don't know all about you, tell us about Kim for the however many years before we met you.
53 years before you met me.
I wasn't going to say a number. I was just going to say.
How long have you got? So when I joined, I was working full time. I was a manager for Cancer Research UK Macclesfield Institute. A very busy manager, not a lot of time for doing much else.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason for looking out for something to do was because my job had changed a lot. I was a lot more desk-based and office-based and not so active. So that was one of the reasons for looking for something around the fitness side.
Okay, cool. What sort of fitnessy things and what have you had you tried before we first met you?
From back in the 80s to aerobics as they had then, and through very different gyms where you just pay and you can go and use kit and things. And I did Pilates, Zumba, sort of various things like that. I did swimming quite a bit, lunchtimes and that, but I'm talking quite a few years ago now, probably before starting Academy as it was then, Rise. I hadn't really done much for quite some time.
So what was it about wherever you were at that particular point that made you feel it was time to do something?
Well, as I said, partly because I was more office-based. I had been mostly manual working on my feet, so was probably generally fitter anyway. But I'd also put on probably, well, I was over 11 stone, so I put on a few stone probably in about a year, 18 months. So obviously I wanted to stop that from carrying on and just to generally be more, have more energy and things. I did notice that, and I had thought it was probably, due to getting perhaps older, even things like menopause, anything like that. And I started to almost decide that was probably where I was at and things weren't going to really change. So it was only really off chance of seeing an advert on Facebook that I, saw the Academy.
Okay, cool.
To one of the meetings.
Do you remember what the advert was that you saw on Facebook?
Well, I remember it was Pat, because she's fully aware that she, her advert, and it was aimed at if you're over 50 and looking for. So I think that was the thing that pulled it for me, because obviously there's adverts and all sorts of things all the time. I'd never been particularly interested in slimming clubs. I tried to reduce, do calorie counting, all sorts of different diets and things, but I'd never been sort of like hugely overweight that I was really that worried about it until coming up to that sort of time, say 2016. So yeah, the advert with Pat on it, and it was people over, looking at women over 50s if you're interested in keeping fit, like-minded people and things. So yeah, that definitely was the attraction. It was no individual reference or anything like that.
Okay. So you mentioned obviously in the preceding 18 months, 2 years or so before we first met, you'd gained an amount of weight there, and part perhaps of where you were at was thinking maybe it was related to age. But looking back in retrospect, what would you say had happened in that time frame for that weight gain to occur?
Definitely changed from more of a manual role, but also added stress, because the management role I'd done for some years, I initially took on due to other management leaving, so it was a bit of an emergency cover thing, which I said I would do for 6 months and did for 5 years. And so I did actually get quite stressed and burnt out, and was finally able to change roles. So I would imagine the stress added to probably my eating habits changing, and
Sure.
eating not the same as previously. So yeah, that's all part, I should imagine.
That's easy done. I understand that. So you saw obviously the advert with Pat on. You came down. You came to a briefing meeting that summer. What were your kind of your first impressions walking in?
Obviously a bit nervous, but quite good because lots of other people there all in the same position. I did actually come with Lauren, who wasn't very old at the time, but didn't end up being particularly interested in that. It was the first time, I think, that you told everybody that you were about to have, your wife was pregnant. That was with
Okay,
Charlie.
all right, cool.
So I thought the way you and the others presented themselves was very real. You know, they'd all been in the same place, and I can't remember who it was who came out, ninjas that came on and agreed to have a chat and that, but I just thought the way you did it, so obviously it was Matt as well at the time, was just sort of down to earth and real. And I was actually sitting next to somebody else who I'd not met before, but who said, "Oh, I'd go for the £20 challenge thing," which hadn't even crossed my mind, I must be honest. But I decided at that meeting, right, I might as well do that. Wasn't sure, but so I did for that. Once I set myself a challenge, I'm quite likely to give it a good go. Did that, so signed up there and then.
Thinking back in the time frame, that was probably Ronnie, would it have been? Do you think he spoke at the meeting in terms of the member side of it?
I don't know. I don't think Ronnie was at the meeting. I didn't know Ronnie. It was, I think it was actually two of them, and I think they met there. You probably know what my memory is
Stacey
like.
and Rich?
Possibly.
Right. I think Ronnie did the majority of them around that time frame, but obviously there's the occasional ones he couldn't make. Okay, so you decided to get started, and then what happened next?
I think we had the induction later that week, which was again quite good. I didn't really have much idea of how it was going to work, even though obviously you'd gone through the brief meeting and that. I still didn't really know what to expect, although I knew it was sessions rather than sort of like just go in and help yourself and do stuff with kit and things. I quite like that setup, the sessions. I won't call it classes for your benefit. But yeah, I think it was when you first go in, of course, you're nervous, but then I quite like the fact that each month you've got more new people that are joining, and they're all in the same boat. Because I was on my own, some people do come in, with people they know or they've already started, and I didn't know anybody else. So yeah, I won't say it wasn't a bit nervous, but you're just made to feel, at ease as soon as you walk in, really, and you've got things to get on with and do. So it's quite a good way to do it.
Brilliant. And how did you get on? So you did the challenge. How did you get on over those 8 weeks?
Okay, started getting to know people. I think I felt as if I settled in really quickly. I think because I had something to focus on, but it was good fun. All the different coaches, of which obviously we found out had been members themselves. A couple of them were relatively new. Have started since I've been there as coach, and they've picked up so quickly. And I think because they similar backgrounds to us, the interaction was much, it's just a totally different, relaxed type interaction with them all and with each other. And I think I worked at it quite well. I know I only just made it, but it was just over £20 I think I did lose. So I think doing the way they did the weigh-ins and everything else and encouraged you, and you got advice all the way through with different things to eat. And if you were perhaps getting a little bit close, maybe not going to make your £20, little tricks and things that you could do. Fish and green veg, I think, was a thing at the time, just to maybe help for that last week or so. But generally, the idea was just gradually changing how you viewed your diet rather than it being eat less of all sorts of things. I found that quite interesting.
You did well there to hit the challenge, because the challenge, whilst in theory the process is the same for everyone, obviously someone who's got a lot more weight to lose, it's less of an adjustment. Someone who's got several stone to lose, doing a deficit that would create £20 of weight loss in 8 weeks is less of a change for someone like yourself, who that was probably all the weight you had to lose.
Yeah, probably quite possibly.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I was accused of perhaps losing too much.
Well, I think people do sometimes accuse people of losing too much, but I think that perhaps maybe says more about where they're at, perhaps with
Well, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was keen for the challenge, but I think one of probably the things I learned because of the way my life was with work and being busy and the family and everything else, we did rely on processed foods a lot. And I didn't actually spend that much time cooking, but again, finding out from the sort of eating side of things, I've actually enjoyed food more since, taking more time to find the fresh stuff, trying different foods and all the rest of it, and it's actually better for you.
That's awesome, because I think that has to underpin whatever changes we're doing. I think whether it be a change to cooking more or however else we do it, has to be a change that we're at the very least happy to do, if not ideally is enjoyable. I think if whatever the changes are, if we don't like doing them, if they're a pain and it's just hard work, willpower, it'll get us so far, but eventually we'll stop. If it's an approach that we're happy to do, we find enjoyable, we'll hopefully, as you have, keep on going. So that's the first couple of months, and obviously you lost the £20 and what have you. But you've got a number of other things that I can think of at the top of my head that you've done and have happened with you over the sort of intervening years. What would you say have been some of the highlights of the time with the club?
Things I never thought I would do, probably mostly. Born survivor, certainly for one.
Yeah.
And the fact that I signed up for it twice is it. But I mean, that again, total eye opener. I mean, for my age and anything else, that is not something that would have even crossed my mind, let alone thought about, and just would not have done it. But it, that first one, you can't escape it if you've never done it before. It is, the way you feel when you get to the end, however well you've done, and the fact that I didn't get up that wall, it doesn't matter. You still, it's, and the biggest part of it was the teamwork. I mean, I wouldn't have got over those walls without someone giving me a good helping hand over. But I mean, it was a brilliant thing to do, and I did it twice, and obviously I was fortunate to be on the two biggest years that we had, so that was quite good as well. But
for those that don't know, for those that don't know, Born Survivors and what's called an OCR, an obstacle course run, like a mud run type event that's held normally. It wasn't last year, but normally each year. One at Capesall Hall near Macclesfield. They do a second one up in the Lake District, and pretty much as you said there, Kim. For the vast majority of people who join us, it's kind of the last thing they ever expected that they would even consider doing. I don't really know why it's become our thing, because in theory, we, on average, attract people who don't like that sort of stuff. We're not a hardcore gym. We're not somewhere that markets to people that like that. I know people that run programs specifically for people that like OCRs and train that kind of person. And then they have teams of 5 or 10 or 15 people at those sort of events, which is still great. For whatever reason, we, in those particular 2 years, had teams of 106 and then 164 people who, nearly all of whom, when they first heard about it, thought, definitely not me. But then, like you did there, got themselves in a position where they felt physically capable, did it, enjoyed it, were pleased with not only the progress they'd made to be able to even give it a go, but then the fact that they could turn up on the day and do it. And yeah, for some reason, it's just become one of our things. And you mentioned there about not getting up the wall. As I said on the day, before we started, things like that don't matter. What everyone did on that day will have been more than 99.9% of the population did, not just on that day, but probably in general. And I think the human brain sometimes is tempted to focus on the little bit of something, whatever it may be, that we didn't quite do. So it might notice the one meal of the week where we ate less well, and then think that we've failed, think that we should write it off and come back to it. It might be tempted to focus on the one obstacle we didn't do or the one exercise we didn't complete, and potentially forgetting what you did that day, which was 10K, all those obstacles and stuff, which is fantastic. I can think of a few other things, a few other highlights. You were the first Golden Panther.
Yay.
For those that don't know, we've changed the system over the last year or so, but at that point we ran a series of, it's a system basically designed to recognise and rewards people's progression, to help keep them motivated when they worked through from being a white wolf through to Black Panther. And then when people like yourself sort of get to Black Panther, we had to add extra levels in, so we added in Advanced, Elite and Master, and then Golden Panther. And the first 8 levels from starting through to Black Panther were more about progression. So it wasn't about hitting absolute levels, it was about making forward progress. But then we had to kind of put something in that was more about hitting an absolute level to give people something still to work for at that stage. And the Golden Panther was pretty challenging to achieve. So that was awesome work in doing that. Well done.
Thank you.
What else have been the highlights of the last coming up for 5 years?
Well, part of that was part of the Golden Panther, apart from maintaining the body fat level, I think it was, lifting 1.5 times your body weight, and then having to do an event. Well, I mean, I'd done Born Survivor, but then we used to have the Olympics, didn't we? We did Olympics at the club, which was, you know, again, something else that I never would have really, I don't like doing things in front of people apart from anything else, but I did do the pull-ups for that, which was quite a good thing to do. And certainly something else that I did while I was there was a 12-week weightlifting course. Now, weightlifting just, again, would not really have crossed my mind, but I did quite enjoy it. I mean, I've obviously not done it for a while and wouldn't be able to lift to that level at the moment and without any training. But even to get to I mean, I would have liked to have got to double my body weight, which at the time would have been about 120, I think. But I think I got up to about 101. So
phenomenal. That's amazing. Deadlifting over 100 kilos is phenomenal. Anyway, full stop for anyone. But yeah, a person of your size, because you're not naturally a big person, to be able to lift over 100 kilos is amazing.
I'm down to the lowest weight that I was when I first joined at the moment.
Okay, right. Yeah, brilliant. Why would you say that is then? Because obviously the last year has been challenging in a lot of respects, and I'd probably say 95% plus of the population have gained weight, but you've lost that little bit there. Why would you say that is?
Definitely something that took a long time for me to sort of get onto and start taking seriously was the MyFitnessPal, which I've now been doing for something like 340 days because it's become a habit.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I can't not do it now, but it is so straightforward. Obviously, most of the stuff I use, recipes, batch cooking and stuff I do, is now already in there. So maintaining that, even though recently, because I've not really, I'm just maintaining, it's definitely keeping me, you know, just around that area. I'm not keeping to exact calories, but because I'm using it, I'm just keeping an eye on it and not going down. And not saying that I would if I stopped using MyFitnessPal, perhaps I wouldn't, but I've got used to that now, and I quite like having it. I put everything in it, so like Christmas Day and any days that I might have more. I actually had McDonald's takeaway for my son's birthday yesterday. But it all goes in there, and it's like you've said, and how we've learned to use it, balancing it out. It is very easy to do, and I just find it now part of my routine. It keeps, I mean, as you said, I'm sort of quite consistent, and I have been for some time because of that. That definitely has helped. Obviously, the whole thing of Rise and how it works and how long I've been going, it's definitely a full-on lifestyle change. It's not something I've done for a short while, stopped, and then put on, and then it's something that's I've now changed and I'm used to doing. And yes, I could give up Rise and carry on probably managing my own, but at the moment, the biggest part of Rise, well, and all the time it has been, but particularly the last year, is the social side of it. The contact with the members and the coaches is definitely, well, I said it enough times, it's been a proper life during the pandemic. It's been pretty good.
That's great to hear, because I know it's been a difficult year, and hearing that kind of what we do is help people with that is great to hear. Just rewinding slightly there to MyFitnessPal and tracking as a general thing. It's interesting, isn't it? Like when you do get used to it, it is actually really quick and easy, but I completely understand people's kind of resistance to doing it, because it feels like a bit of a pain in the arse when you first do it. I think it's because it's whilst you're doing something else, and maybe there's an element of kind of knowing actually what it's going to tell you and not necessarily wanting to face that. But most people I know who've got into doing it on a regular basis, when they look at their screen time on their phone, it's about 5 minutes per week. Yeah. So 5 minutes out of 180 is probably the highest return on investment activity we could do. If you were to do that amount of exercise, that would still be beneficial, but it would do relatively little. that amount of, I don't know, work or anything else. There's only so much you can get in 5 minutes, but 5 minutes of tracking, not even 5 minutes sat down in one go, but 5 minutes spread out across the week, for the benefit it gives, both in terms of the knowledge you can take forward, and as you're finding there, that degree of accountability, that degree of almost not having to answer to it, but just knowing that there'll be something that kind of recognises those decisions that you make and makes it more likely that you'll make, on average, better decisions as you have been. Cool, so that pretty much brings us up to date. I posted in the group earlier asking if anyone got any particular questions for you. Janet, who I fully expected would ask something.
Yeah.
Janet's question was, how would Kim describe her level of fitness before Rise?
I think I've probably already said, actually, but I mean, because of my job at the time, it had become from something that was fairly on my feet all the time, manual. I was doing a lot more office-based work, and it was, I really wasn't doing much apart from the odd, taking the dog out for not really a long walk. I mean, Janet knows more than anyone the amount I've increased. Nowhere near as much as Janet has on all the daily walks she's doing, but yeah, and that was again for improved fitness, because something else I've learned, and I think we're all learning because of the way you're showing us, is that increasing the exercise and everything isn't what helped lose the weight. That's the diet, but it definitely does help with energy and general fitness.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I say to everyone. I say, whilst there are potential weight loss and calorie burning benefits from exercise, I think almost it works best for most people to say that there aren't, to say that exercise is great for feeling good, for energy levels, for mental health, clarity, focus, mood, fitness, average longevity, all that sort of stuff. And as you said, eating better for weight loss in essence, because that's by far the easiest win. Even a great workout's only going to burn a few hundred calories. The adjustments you'd make to eat a few hundred calories less, whilst maybe mentally is a challenge, physically it's almost no effort. It's like actually less effort in some ways, because you're either just eating a little bit less of the same thing, or maybe you're making some tactical swap. Yeah, cool, awesome. So that brings Kim right up to date. Any particular words of wisdom you've got? Anything that you think that people listening to this will be interested to hear?
Well, only from my own experience, but certainly to realise it's not just a quick fix, but certainly what we just said about the exercise not being, you see a lot of people advertising and that saying get fit and get this and lose so many pounds, is not to put all the onus on that.
Yeah.
Because it's, obviously there's lots of important reasons for it, but I think it's people thinking that that's what's going to get them, could then end up being disappointed they're not losing weight as they expect to by doing that exercise. So it's fine, but just do a bit of both, try and balance it.
Yeah, 100%. I think the benefit of exercise and weight loss is massively overrated, if you will, and I think as an industry, the fitness industry is massively guilty of that. I see a lot of people trying to sell their programs based on the massive fat burning potential of their custom designed way of doing it, and maybe their structure makes it 5 or 10% more effective, but it's hugely been oversold. I think often as well, these things are based on some vague kernel of truth, but just exaggerated to a degree that it makes it essentially not true. Like, people talk a lot about the afterburn effect of their sessions. I still see it now. I see facilities marketing that their sessions will turn you into a fat burning machine for up to 72 hours after a workout. And the research suggests that any increased calorie burn over the 3 days afterwards is in the magnitude of maybe 80 to 100 calories or so, which is pointless. You're talking 30 calories odd per day from doing a workout that you probably found less enjoyable, not always, but chances are found less enjoyable than another one that you might do. And the adjustments you'd make to eat 30 calories less instead are infinitely more easy. And same with a lot of things, same with when people talk about so many things in the fitness industry, the benefit of certain supplements, fasting windows, all these sort of things. Again, there's a kernel of truth. There's something there, but it's to me, it's what you might do if you're training for the Olympics. It might add that extra 0.5% or 2% on, but actually there are far bigger wins. Just eating a bit better, doing some exercise, maybe trying to get a bit more sleep and drinking a bit more water are way bigger wins for 99% of the population.
Yeah, I think it has been certainly over the years that I've been around and doing exercise, missold to an extent, because I certainly believe that when I started exercising that the more exercise you could eat what you want, and some of them advertise that you can eat what you want as long as you do this exercise. I mean, the best ones are those drinks that are supposed to you swallow them and they're like melting your fat as you're swallowing them, which is pretty,
you get some terrible ones now. Like skinny coffees, and then you've got skinny jabs and all these sort of things, and it's like, I don't get what the supposed even thought processes behind some of them are. It's like, for some, you're like, well, I see where you've come from. You've got it a bit wrong, but I see where you've come from. With some things, you're just like, well, that's just nonsense. But
I think there's more. The professionals are being more honest than they used to be in years gone by. I mean, it was just misadvertising, but I think they have got better now. I mean, with MyFitnessPal, I've never included any of my exercise in that. I know for some of them, particularly if you walk for a fair distance, burns off some calories, but I've never used that on. I don't want to. There's no need. That's not why I do the exercise. I think it's more, the diet is more the side if I wanted to lose more weight, whereas the exercise side is more for me, for the fitness and the fun side, to be honest. I mean, I know we haven't been able to do it the same for a long time now, but even on Zoom, because it is live interaction, when we have a chat afterwards and things, it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely the next best thing. I say to everyone when they say that they're not enjoying it as much as being in the club, it's like, well, no one is, and I don't expect you to. I did post the other day for my kids about their homeschooling. They're not enjoying that as much as being at school, but it's the next best thing. It's better than doing nothing. It's better than kind of stopping completely, slipping backwards, whether that be education-wise or health and fitness-wise, and having to kind of start again at some point. Yeah. Cool, awesome. Anything else you think that the people listening will be interested to hear, Kim?
Well, nothing that you haven't said in the past. Certainly the sort of speed up and slow down versus starting and stopping is another thing that you pick up bits and pieces along the way that actually make a lot of sense. And I think that's what's helped a lot of people.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks for your time, Kim. Hope you guys listening at home enjoyed that.
Thank you.